welcome back. Today we have an incredible guest, Renee King-Sonnen, and from Rowdy Girl Sanctuary. We're going to hear all about that. And then also I've got with me my fantastic guest co-host, Monica. So Monica, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
All right, Renee.
Yes.
We're really psyched to have you here. It's been a long time coming. We've been, waiting to get you on. What can you tell us about yourself and Rowdy Girl?
Well, a lot of people think I'm Rowdy Girl, and I have to admit I am pretty rowdy, but Rowdy Girl Sanctuary was named after my beloved calf, Rowdy Girl. And Rowdy Girl was purchased by me about 11 years ago when my husband wanted me to get more involved in cattle ranching. I wasn't a vegan at the time. Neither was he. We were cattle ranchers, and I really had no inclination to help him at the ranch. I was into yoga, music, meditation, and, doing my thing, and helping out at the ranch wasn't really what I wanted to do unless I was doing yoga or something out there. But he wanted me helping with fences, helping with hay, helping with this and that, and I didn't really want to. And so in order to get me interested, he came home one day and told me about these two calves that needed a mama, and one of them was Rowdy Girl. And so it's all his fault. I blame Tommy all the time for telling me about these two calves that I fell in love with. The youngest one, one of them passed away early. She had a failure to thrive disease. Never got colostrum, never thrived. She died like within a week. But Rowdy Girl was, just something else. Very rowdy. Always wanted attention. I began to just fall in love with feeding her. Twice a day, like clockwork, I would run outside and I would become like a character in her life. I became her mom. I became Rowdy Girl's surrogate mom. And it really felt like I was catapulted into a world that I had no idea existed. Prior to Rowdy Girl, I didn't even acknowledge the cows, really. I knew they were there, but I never really thought too much about it. They were Black Angus, and they were there for a purpose, and I never gave it too much thought. But Rowdy Girl changed all that. So she was the impetus of my transformation, if you will. She was what started that ball rolling down the rabbit hill. That old rabbit hole you go through? She's the one that started all that for me.
Awesome. So for the uninitiated, for people who don't know, why don't you tell us what Rowdy Girl Sanctuary is and then how it started?
Okay, yeah. Rowdy Girl Sanctuary is a 501c3 nonprofit farm animal sanctuary. We're the first ever cattle ranch in the world to transition and go vegan. And I didn't know that at the time. But that's what Rowdy Girl Sanctuary is. We have one of the largest herd rescues intact ever. And we're the first documented beef cattle ranch to transition, the first that I know of anyway. But so that's what Rowdy Girl Sanctuary is. We are in Welder, Texas. We've been a nonprofit since February 20th, 2015. And that's what we do. We have visitors, tours, people come volunteer, and we have very specific programming called the Rancher Advocacy Program, where we transition cattle ranchers and animal farmers' minds to go from animal farming to plant-based farming. And we also have a program called Families Choosing Compassion, where we inspire, educate, and encourage families that are in the FFA and 4-H system to stop doing that and to be part of their animal's life till the day they die.
Hell yeah. We love this. I'll pass it over to Monica.
Yeah. Ranching runs so deep in Texas, and there's 8th generation ranchers there now. And it's just so embedded in the culture with the FFA and the 4-H and programs that are within the school. I want to hear more about how you view leadership when it comes to the start of Rowdy Girl and how you run the sanctuary.
How I view leadership? Wow, that's a great question. Because not everybody's cut out for this. You know, a lot of people want to do this. They want to have a sanctuary because they want to save animals. But if you can't lead, you will fall flat, and you will not only, embarrass yourself, but you will, probably kill the animals to go with it. I mean, I'm just saying, I don't mean that ugly, but not everybody's cut out for this work. It is a tough life. When I made the decision to do this, I was already very much a business person. I had my own businesses in the past. I was not afraid to get on to camera, to appeal, to ask for money. I was not afraid to do whatever I had to do to get a nonprofit status, to get whatever funding I needed. You cannot be shy when it comes to what you need when you're taking care of animals that are otherwise eaten, in our food system after about 6 months of being born. And so, I am very much the person that I lead by my own passion. I am motivated and inspired by my mission. I am driven to be a change maker because I really do believe that, we have to change our food system. We have to change the way we view animals. We have to change the way we view tradition, view culture. And so as a leader, I am constantly being asked to talk about these things because this is the way I roll up here. This is the way I process. And part of that leadership involves a lot of education, not only, in forums where I'm being asked to speak at Veg Fest or conferences, but also people. Like I do everything I can to educate one-on-one and lead in that way. You just have to inspire, you have to educate, you have to be, and you have to take care of yourself. Part of being an effective leader is also, knowing how to shut it down, knowing how to be present with your center so that you can be full for others. But having a sanctuary, is tough. It's a lot of work, and you better get ready. It's those animals depend on you leading,
It's a huge leap from, I barely noticed the animals. They're just kind of part of the backdrop. Like I knew that there are food, and I also know they existed, but they're just kind of there. There's a huge leap from that to running an animal sanctuary. And I know that the starting point was Rowdy Girl, but what was the transition like? Like the kind of the self-reflection, the holding up the mirror. But I actually like to hear, like, from developing this special relationship with this animal to changing into vegan, to starting something. Because a lot of people could just be like, okay, I'm vegan now, but I'm just going to stay quiet about it. Like, to actually making a decision to do this, to influencing her husband going forward. What's the story between falling in love with this animal to where you are today?
Yeah, that was a journey. And I went vegan 5 years after I got Rowdy Girl. So that's a 5-year journey. And it's one that started with me being, I'm always a person that observes a lot. I practice observation, and because I'm a yogini, I practice yoga. And so part of that is observation, but I wasn't vegan. I just practiced a lot of yoga, and observation was part of it. And I started observing the animals, the cows and the calves, when I would feed Rowdy Girl. I literally feel like I was Alice in Wonderland in a rabbit hole, like I was in a different life when I was with her. And I began to have heightened senses. I like to liken it to, you know how you've seen those. I'm a vampire. I love vampire movies. Okay. And so, you know, when a vampire transitions, they get heightened senses, right? They get real heightened senses and all this, right? And strong, and, you know, they got to have all these heightened senses to be a vampire. Well, you got to have heightened senses to be an ethical vegan too, let me tell you. So that's what happened for me, is my senses began to heighten. When I was with Rowdy Girl, I could feel the heartbeat of these animals. I could feel the nuances of what they were communicating to each other. I could sense who was the babysitters. I could sense who the siblings were. You know, things I wouldn't normally even know, recognize, or even give a crap about began to like be way up here, and like I was going, whoa. I mean, and I wasn't on acid or anything. I was just like going vegan and didn't know it. You know, I didn't have anybody throwing blood on themselves or saying, go vegan. It was just Rowdy Girl. And her communication to me, when I was feeding her, she was feeding me. And she and I have a very, very close bond to this day. Like sitting right here talking to you, I can sense her. It's a heightened sense. And so over the years, I began to question my husband, you know, like, why are we eating animals from the store when we have, you know, animals here that are pasture raised? Why aren't we killing our own animals? I began to like ask questions that I normally, you know, could care less about, but I wanted to understand what we were doing. And I would leave Rowdy Girl, feeding Rowdy Girl, and I would go back and have to be a rancher's wife. I'd have to be analytical. You know, when I was not feeding Rowdy Girl, I would see the herd of cows. I would see the herd. When I was feeding Rowdy Girl, I saw them individually. And it, you know, we have this idea that it's just a herd of cattle. Well, no, those are individuals. And I began to see them individually. I began to name them. And I don't even know that I was naming them, or maybe they were telling me their names. I mean, it kind of felt that way. And as time went on, I just began to push my husband to uncomfortable places where he would have to answer things he didn't want to answer. Like, why don't we eat our own animals? And, you know, finally he told me, well, because I can't eat animals that I know. And when he told me that, I knew there was a problem, because, so, you know, I said, oh, so we don't eat animals we know, but we can eat animals we don't know, the same kind. And what if it's their mother or their brother or their sister? Or what if it's really them and you don't even know it? You know, and so, you know, it's really about perception, you know what I mean? And so, all these conflicts started happening, and I started wanting to, you know, get my milk from a local dairy. I began to do more and more research. My research led me to trying to be more humane. I really thought I could be more humane. And until I realized with all that research that all it meant was animals were going to still be killed. And it just was a label. It wasn't a reality. It is not humane to slit anyone's throat that doesn't want to die. It is not humane to breed animals into existence, to kill them, to take them from their families. There's nothing humane about animal agriculture. It is the most egregious, horrific industry on this earth. I believe that today. I didn't know that then. I was trying to understand who we were. I'm married to a cattle rancher. I'm a cattle rancher because I'm married to one, you know, and I'm having these relationships with these cows that defy my understanding. And one day, and I began to make it very difficult for my husband to send the animals to the sale barn, because every 6 months, the animals would be rounded up and the babies would be sent to the sale barn. So we had a cow-calf operation. And a cow-calf operation breeds so that the babies can be born. They nurse from their mothers. And 6 months later, that batch of animals will go to a sale barn where they're sold to go to a feedlot or wherever else they're going to go. And I made it real hard. My husband didn't even want me around when he did it because I would cry. I wasn't a vegan. I started developing this sensitivity. I didn't know any vegans. I wasn't even thinking about being a vegan. I was just becoming a compassionate person that couldn't stand or tolerate these animals going to the sale barn. I hated it. And I didn't want to be in this business anymore. And so I kept trying to figure out ways to be in the business that I hated. And so more and more humane education, more and more and more. And every time I turned around, it was like a dead end. Animals still died and they didn't want to die. And I just drove myself freaking crazy. And then on October 31st, 2014, yes, it was Halloween, my favorite holiday.
Was it you got another vampire connection here?
Yeah. Well, it kind of does. October 31st, 2014, I was watching a dissertation by Dr. Melanie Joy. Do you know her?
Yes.
Yeah. So Dr. Melanie Joy, and I've met her since. I met her a couple of times. I just love her because her dissertation on carnism is what exploded my insides. I was primed for 5 years for this. October 31st, we were on our way that evening to go to his mother's house. We had a big family get together every year, Halloween block party with all the kids in their costumes, and all the, family would, get together and just chit chat, play cards or whatever, eat, and do the block party with kids with all the costumes. So that particular day, I'm watching this dissertation, and Melanie Joy is talking to this table of this family around a table. They're eating beef stew. And she says, have you seen that one where they're eating beef stew? Where she says, they're all eating beef stew. They're just loving it. And somebody at the table says, what's the recipe? This is so good. And the lady of the house says, well, so glad you asked. You start off with a pound of very young golden retriever. Well, I, along with everybody on camera, opened my mouth in shock, and I was like, oh my effing God. No, that cannot be true. And I was like, ah! And then the lady says, oh no, just kidding. It's really, a cow. Well, nobody could resume eating because the imagery of baby puppies being chopped to death in a bowl was what was in their mind. It was in my mind too. And I was like, oh God. And so that just mortified me. And it really set my mind to thinking about, all this. And here we are going to my mother-in-law's house. We go to my mother-in-law's house just a couple hours later. We walk in and all the kids are there. My mother-in-law walks out with this big old pot of beef stew. And she says, oh, good to see you. She sets it on the table. Would you like a bowl of stew? And my ears are ringing, I'm like, I can't eat that. And she was like, well, why not, Renee? I said, because it's got floating dead, hacked up animal bodies in it, and I can't eat it. I had never called it that. I had never called beef stew floating dead, hacked up animal bodies. That just never was part of my vocabulary. But when that Melanie Joy did that, and my mother-in-law looked at me, and everybody in the room stopped talking. They looked at me and was like, what? What did you say? I said, it's got floating dead, hacked up animal bodies in it. I can't eat it. And I was as authentic as I'd ever been in my life. And she said, well, Renee, you can pick it out. And I was like, nope, there ain't no more picking it out for me. At that moment on the spot, I became a vampire. Well, I became a vegan. But at that moment, right then, everything that was on my insides jumped to my outsides. It was like I was reborn on the spot. And, oh my God, my poor husband, he did not know who I was. I had totally changed. I hated what he was doing. He was a murderer. No more animal products in my home. That's it. I mean, it was on. If you've ever seen War of the Roses, that movie War of the Roses where they hang from the chandelier, you ever seen that?
Yeah.
Well, it was like that in our house. But it was
I don't want to
antlers.
say like we're like a few minutes in, we're already dropping War of the Roses statements. We're dropping vampire statements. I'm feeling good about it. Please continue.
That's what happened. I mean, it was crazy. And my poor husband didn't know who he was married to.
I love that. I also love like the wildness of like that moment where you're like, now there's like hacked up dead, like floating body parts in there. I like the non-subtleness of it's like a mic drop, like moment. I like everything about this story. Monica?
Yeah. And I really like the Melanie Joy's take on the belief system that's carnism, because none of us choose the system. It's just the system that we're born into and the cognitive dissonance that's required to perpetuate carnism. It's really interesting when you just take a look at it and you become aware. And I love how this awareness really drove action for you. Going vegan isn't a planned event, and I like how you elaborated on that. Tell us a bit about how activism plays into Rowdy Girl and how it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, that's a good question. I in my other life, before vegan, I was always the kind of person that liked to inspire, motivate, encourage, educate. I had a school at one point. It was Renee King's School of Performing Stars, and I taught stage and vocal performance. I taught very, very high performing techniques to people that really wanted to perform in big audiences. I mean, and really have that star quality. I'm the kind of person that always wants to inspire greatness in others. That's just who I am. Okay. So you take that, and now that I'm vegan for the animals, for the animals, animal rights was a no-brainer. It was like, I am going to naturally inspire and educate, and I'm going to do it in a very, very interesting way where performance and theatrics plays into it, because that's who I am. And it works for me. I mean, my activism is, I love it when people ask me, what do I do with the eggs? I mean, that lets me talk about chicken periods for a long time. And it really, throws people a loop, whenever I tell them all that. It doesn't matter whatever anybody wants to say to me, ask me questions. My activism is such that I tell lots of stories and I hold nothing back. I don't judge, but by the time they get through talking to me, they are like really questioning their choices, because I do not hold back about educating around veganism. And the second,
I actually, sorry, I just want to ask a real quick question there about this. It's an add-on to this. Like, very specifically, you make this choice. So one day you're not vegan, the next day you are vegan, and suddenly you're on a mission. And you look around and you're in like ranching territory. So it's like, once a person might say you're in enemy territory, and like you've got to change hearts and minds. Another person might say like, oh no, you're in like prime opportunity. It's like you're in the opportunity area. Like, you obviously, not to use a term that I think we could joke about, it's like you're going to have a lot of beef with people who are trying to change, who are like, you're trying to change their thinking. Like, when you made this change and you got into this activist space, how did you handle people's negative reactions and people's pushback and people not wanting to talk to you? Like, how did you get into that space where you can influence thinking, and how do you keep doing it?
Well, a lot of people ask me this question, and it's Texas has this persona of being all cattle ranching, and people like push it back and all that. I didn't get a lot of pushback from cattle ranchers. I got more pushback from vegans than I did cattle ranchers, honestly. And because I am not your typical vegan. I hung out with cattle ranchers, and still do to this day. We work with cattle ranchers. We buy hay from them. They help us fix fences. We work with vets that are cattle ranchers. They're curious about what we do. They don't put us down, not to my face anyway. And I think that because we have cattle ranchers and their wives that call us wanting us to rescue animals that they don't want to send to the slaughterhouse because they've seen our story on national news. And so, we're really an ally to cattle ranchers. But I'll tell you, some vegans out there, we've had some vegans hate on us. It's the craziest thing you'd ever seen. But, but I haven't had any cattle ranchers hating on us. The only time I might have experienced a little bit of that was whenever, I was very early on, and I was in the middle of a rescue of a steer named Oatmeal. And I was slap dab in the middle of good old boy territory of FFA and 4-H trying to get this steer Oatmeal out of a slaughterhouse and in a sanctuary. Hours I was trying. And so I was stepping on their toes is what I was doing. I didn't know I was stepping on their toes because I was kind of new at the time. But I was really stepping on their toes. I didn't handle myself very tactfully. And so, I've learned a lot since then. And, cattle ranchers are good people. They're not the enemy. The enemy is animal ag, the industry. Mm-hmm. The enemy is tradition, culture, our government. I'm just calling it out. I mean, it isn't the cattle ranchers. They're just doing what they do,
But that's
trying to make a living.
That's the point. Like that. So nothing drives me crazier than the idea of trying to create change through increased conflict with people. I think you got to meet people where they're at. Try to create a situation where you can have real dialogue, be in real places. And I think the idea, that's why I want to say, are you in enemy territory or are you kind of in an opportunity rich territory? Because when I view creating change, previously I was a therapist. So I did a lot of addiction work. Addiction work isn't about making people feel that drugs are bad and they're evil for doing them. Addiction work is about acceptance, understanding, meeting people where they're at, trying to create meaningful change that they care about, that they want, not how I think they should change. And I think the failure of many different kind of forms of change is creating continued conflict that is lazy and easy, because it's easy to be in conflict with people and it's hard to be compassionate and meet people where they're at. So it doesn't surprise me you've probably gotten a bit of backlash from the vegan community. And I think that's sad. I think it's a sad commentary on the idea of activism.
Can we expand on your relationship with the ranchers and on your rancher advocacy program, the RAP Summit that you put on, and the work you do with expanding people's circle of compassion?
Yeah. The RAP Summit, we're having our fourth one July 30th, actually. And, that was the rancher advocacy program was inspired by a conversation I had with a lady named Nikki. At the time, she's still very much a part of the work we do, in the background, behind the scenes. But she was talking to me one day about programming. I was very, very early on, and she was, letting me know, Renee, you need to start picking some programming for Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, something different, something that's everybody else isn't doing. And talk to me a little bit about what you do day to day. How do you, what kind of conversations do you have on the phone, through emails? And so I started talking to her, and I said, well, ever since that big CBS Evening News story, cattle ranchers and their families reach out to me. I find myself in the middle of the freaking pasture. Somebody wanted to talk to me, that's the daughter of a cattle rancher, or a cattle rancher's wife, or somebody pretending to be so-and-so when they're really a cattle rancher, wanting to talk to me about the way they feel about their animals. She said, what? Tell me more. And so I've realized from that conversation with her that I was not only an animal rights activist, but I was a rancher advocate. And that is truly, truly what I am. I am an advocate for cattle ranchers and animal farmers. I'm not here to put them down. I'm here to meet them where they are. I'm in recovery. I've been in the recovery movement for over 30 years. And, cattle ranchers, have to recover too. We have to recover from a hopeless state of mind and body that teaches us that we have only one way to farm, that the only way we're going to get subsidies or tax breaks, etc., is if we farm animals. We need to start making it easy for farmers to transition to a plant-based farm, and we need to change our supply chain so that things aren't global, they're more local. We need to start speaking to indigenous needs, to our black fellows, Americans that need our assistance. We've taken so much away from people. Farming should be part of who we are in our communities, in our culture. It should be our relationship to the earth, to the ground, to animals should be very harmonious. Doesn't need to involve killing at all. There's no reason to involve the killing of animals. We need to be able to be one with animals, one with the earth, one with our food. Food is grown, not born. I always say, if you plant a dead lamb, you're not going to get a lamb tree. Duh. All you're going to get is a diseased, decaying carcass. So the Rancher Advocacy Program is really about education, inspiring cattle ranchers, farmers to transition. We are working with a couple of farms. It's the type of thing that when I started doing this, nobody was doing it. Nobody was talking about it. I found myself in a bottomless pit of it'll never happen. You'll never see the light of day with this. But I didn't hear that. What I heard is, we have to do this. We as in I have to do whatever I have to do to inspire, to ignite, to motivate, to whatever I got to do to set the fire. I got to do it. And I did that. And, now, farm transition is talked about in our world right now. I'm like, wow, how did this happen? Nobody wanted to talk to me about it 5 years ago. It was like, it'll never happen, Renee. But now, we're on the tip of the spear. It's kind of cliche, but it's true. We're transitioning a farm right now in Arkansas from a chicken farm to a mushroom farm. We've been working with them for 4 years. This farmer used to breed into existence 100,000 chickens every 52 days. They used to raise chickens in dark, dingy, horrible, horrific an environment. And now they're growing mushrooms. And we are going to be able to produce 32,000 pounds a week very soon. And what we're doing, behind the scenes, I don't even talk about this. I'm telling y'all stuff that I'm probably hadn't even told anybody yet, but, it's going to revolutionize chicken farming. And, I'm real honored to be a part of a team, that whatever passion I had ignited the right people, and the right people are involved, and the right people have showed up to make what could have really turned into a horrible situation. This farm could have lost everything. They could have lost all their animals. They could have lost all of their land, all of their resources. And we managed to all come together and figure it out. And I couldn't be more humble or proud of that. But they're going to be on the RAP Summit. Jennifer and Rodney Barrett will be on the farm, on the summit, along with Dennis Vidmar, who is with the Mushroom Hub, and he is now the principal of Arkansas Fungi. So they'll be there. The Plant-Based Food Association will be there. And so the Rancher Advocacy Program is just ramping up and getting started, doing some really amazing work. One day it'll be its own nonprofit.
Love it. So from just a practical perspective, a lot of the work that we do as coaches and again, like we do executive coaching and we do a lot of training. One of the things that I see a lot is if a certain industry is in the news, especially if it's in the news in a negative way, there's this kind of polarized, like, oh, the people who work in those companies, they're evil, they don't care. I'll give you an example, like a pipeline company or an energy company. And having worked with a lot of those companies and knowing people there and like having personal relationships with them, being like, well, actually, no, these people they aren't awful. And they don't necessarily think what's happening is good, but they're trying to create the best version of what they think is they're trying to create the best version of a bad situation, or they're trying to prevent that themselves. So like that kind of polarized idea, like if we go to around cattle ranches, people being like, oh, they're bad, evil people. So much of what you're saying is resonating with me. It's like, hey, listen, just because someone's in an industry that's locked into certain ways of doing things, or that exists because like the way the economy worked kind of created this thing. I don't want to say people are like hapless, but people aren't always these evil people, or people also aren't necessarily aware that what they're doing isn't wrong because they're raised a certain way, or they're raised in an industry, or they understand things in a very specific way. So it's super compelling what you're talking about. I'm not saying like, let's give people like endless breaks, like nobody is bad, but also like not everyone is bad. Like there's like lots of people are actually probably genuinely good people. They just need to be shown a different way. So from a very practical perspective, how does one transition from like being a cattle ranch to anything else where a person could still make a good living off of it?
Well, that's to be determined. That's the work we're doing. We're on the front end of that. If I knew that right now, boy, we'd be changing the world a mile a minute. But, there's no right answer right now. Now I can tell you some things we're exploring, vertical farming. I think vertical farming in these freight containers is a very, very good way to begin to grow food for your community. And also because you got to take care of the land. See, the land has been decertified, compacted, overused, overgrazed. And, cattle ranchers don't have a ton of land, with just a few cows. Cattle ranchers, for the most part, are really overusing their land. So the land is not going to be any good to grow food on. It needs to be rewilded, reforested. We need to, come together in our communities and educate our communities on how to bring back, the wild. We've got to get our wild back,
Could you
our wildlife.
Could you explain vertical farming for people who wouldn't know what that term is?
Yeah. So vertical farming is when you grow up instead of flat. You grow, whether it's trellises, whether it's pallets, whatever people want to use, and it's in a controlled environment. It's in a controlled environment so you can, maybe use less water. You can experiment with solar energy and all of that. So whether it's raining, whether it's snowing, whether it's a drought, it doesn't matter. You can grow food in a controlled environment. And that to me is what I think farming needs to start really looking into, is more and more of these vertical farms. And there's a lot of companies coming out now with turnkey packages where they can buy these freight containers and they can get the education that goes right along with it.
Awesome. And then you'd said kind of like rewilding the land. I'm sorry, I didn't get the exact term, but so this land's just been overused for a cattle farm. It's been overgrazed. The land has been essentially like beat up, and so it's not good for anything else but cattle farming. So the idea is, well, it is what it is, so we might as well keep doing that. But what you're suggesting is by using vertical farming, it could give the land some time to like reconstitute. Is that correct?
Yeah, and you can become good stewards of the land. Instead of using the land to just stomp it out by cows, you can, do your research, find out what kind of native grasses, native flowers, native, wild animals are supposed to be there. And you can, create a synergy with the land to bring it back to the way it's supposed to be according to the area geographically that you're in. I mean, like when we moved here to Welder, this place was wild. It hadn't had any cows on it in many years. And it was wild. Wildflowers everywhere. Butterflies, bees, dragonflies, even reported, like wildcats, and there used to be bears out here. And now, since we've been here and we're doing good stuff, don't get me wrong, but the cows they will take over the land, and so, we're constantly rotating pastures, making sure they got good grass. We've got to get back to caring for our land, just like we care for animals. Our land, our Mother Earth, is in dire straits, and it's because we are overusing the earth, overgrazing, overbreeding, killing everything. We become a killing machine. That's what we do. We are a killing machine, killing animals, killing resources, killing land, commodifying, and we've got to get back to nature. Really, it's so simple, but yet it's so hard for people because we are over consumers,
What does it mean to be mission driven, and why do you claim that for yourself?
I'm mission driven. What it means to me is that every breath I take, even if I'm on vacation, there's a reason for it. I'm 64 years old, and I'm sober in mind, body, and spirit. I believe I really am that. I'm very connected spiritually to my source, and so I know that I'm here for a purpose. And I have taken a lot of tests. I come out highly autistic on all of them. And that's okay with me. I don't mind even saying it out loud today. And so I kind of vibe on a different level. And so I am extremely mission driven. I am all about, people say it cliche. Oh, you're changing the world. Let me tell you, that is the way I think. I think in terms of global. I'm always thinking global. However, I do know that it starts at home, but everything ripples, and so that's what it means to me. It means to know why you're here, nurture why you're here, eat, sleep, drink, breathe while you're here, and then involve myself in not only Rowdy Girl and rap, but like I'm on the board of directors of the Agriculture Fairness Alliance. We're a 501c4 lobbying group that is all about creating legislation, the ag appropriation language that our Congress needs to hear so that we can create transition programs in our government for farmers. So when I say mission driven, whatever I can do.
Whenever we talk to leaders on the podcast, one of the things I want to ask is like, what does leadership cost people? And what I mean by that is like leadership can be something as benign as, hey, we're all going to go on a walk and someone's just kind of leading the way. Someone chooses the direction. In other cases, it can be like, oh, who's going to lead this project? Who's going to lead this team? And in some cases like yours, it's someone saying, hey, I don't think that's right. And I believe there's a better way. I don't know what it is exactly, but I'm willing to lead the way to figure that out. That's cool. There's a lot of benefits that come with that. but people also don't do it for a reason, because sometimes there's a real cost with it. You kind of alluded to one earlier about like kind of knowing how to lead yourself so that you can actually like, hey, I need to shut down now so I can actually be here with people in my life. But this thing that you're doing right now, and this passion and being that mission driven, being a leader in that way and like living it day to day, breath to breath, has it cost you anything?
Yeah, if I look at what it costs me. I'm the kind of person that likes to shut down. Like, people think I'm an extrovert because I am very good at communicating, and I'm gifted and skilled at being out front. But my real preference is to be an exclusion, And but man, when I need to be on, I don't care if it's 10 people or 100,000 people. I have no qualms getting in front of anybody because I am so mission driven. I'm not just wanting to go up there and sing a song. I could do that too. But as far as what it's cost me, I think, I like silent retreats. I like going to 10-day silent retreats. And I don't get to go to those as often as I would like. Like 10 days in a row of silence. It's, I have to make it happen. I have to make silence happen. Like I built my house around a meditation room. I've learned to adapt in order to be a leader in this movement, in the work that I do. But I think it's probably cost me that. I'm also highly creative. I'm a songwriter and a guitar player, and I don't play as much, my guitar as much. I don't write songs like I used to. It's kind of like, but I don't miss it either. It's like if I wanted to pick up the guitar right now and play it, I could. I did write something about a month ago. Anytime I want to pick it up and do it, I can do it. I'm an artist. If, I could paint you right now. So if it's cost me anything, it's cost me the time I choose on doing some of these creative things. But my creativity goes into whatever I'm choosing to do. And I've always been that person that has never worked for other people. My life has always managed to produce for me as long as I'm staying true to myself. I don't sit around wondering how I'm going to make money. I just do what I do and money comes. It's just part of it. You plant a tree, you get a tree. Plant, the kind of work I do, from the right heart, from the right mission, funds come. And, and if I need more, I got to figure out how to do that. But I think it's cost me some of the quiet moments of extended silence. I'm writing a book right now, and I'm committed to a chapter a week. So in my meditation, I ask God to expand time for me, because that's one thing that I find that I lack more and more of. And it's not that there is a lack of time. Time is the same for everyone. But I am so involved in so many aspects of this movement. I have to learn to make decisions, choices. I can't be on every podcast. I get asked all the time, and I want to do them all, but I just can't, So does that answer your question?
Beautifully. Perfect. Without injecting my own story here too much, I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. That space of creativity and the space that you'd spend kind of centering yourself on things, you put into other things, but also that also allows you to funnel your creativity into another area. So you're still being creative. You're just being creative in a different way. So it totally answered the question. It totally resonated. I find it I found it very inspirational. Thank you.
And you've got such a deep compassion and awareness. How do you handle compassion fatigue?
Yeah. like today when I was at the dentist, I was looking on my phone. There's a place right up here in Austin. It's called Optimal Health Institute. I'm not plugging them on purpose, but they do these like 1 week, 2 week, 3 week retreats where you do wheatgrass, you rejuvenate with raw food, and you swim in an oxygenated pool. And compassion fatigue for me, I have to deliberately schedule time to rejuvenate my mind, body, spirit. It has to be scheduled. Okay? I get up in the morning, I pray, I meditate. My room here has got an altar. I do it every morning without fail. I listen to all kind of teachings, whether they be from the Tao or, Essene Christian. I love the mysticism of the ancient Jewish Christians. And I listen to a lot of teachings that are eternal. That helps my compassion fatigue a lot. I eat good food. I don't overeat. I'm mindful. Ever mindful. Always, always mindful. I find time to be quiet and to just be. And, and I'm looking for a place right now after this summit to go away for a week and just totally take care of myself, You have to do that sort of thing,
Do you mind if I ask you a question that's based on kind of like vegan businesses?
Of course, you can ask me anything.
Okay. All right, good. This is one of my favorite questions to ask people who are involved in kind of any kind of activism around veganism. So we see now like plant-based food and vegan food and even vegetarian food is like real outsider stuff. So I first went vegan in, I don't know, like 1997 or something like that. And I was only vegan for about a year. And I was like, this is too much. And I just went back to being vegetarian. And because the food was like awful. It was just terrible. And it was like outsider. You had to go to stores. It's hard to find. Like in big cities like New York, you could find things. But I grew up in Calgary, Alberta. So it was like really tough to find stuff. But there's been a boom. And being vegan is like way easier. And it's not actually even easy. It's just like super normal. I can go down to the grocery store. I can go down to the convenience store. I can get a good piece of vegan pizza pretty much anywhere. It's just a different time. But as that's happened, lots of companies that aren't vegan-based companies are starting to invest money. Or vegan companies are selling, like they get to a point and then they sell themselves to like big food conglomerates. So a question that I like to ask is it possible for companies that aren't vegan-based companies to be ran ethically? So do we run the risk of it becoming an oligarchy where essentially it's like large companies don't care where the money's coming from. They just want all of the money. So they'll produce tons of animal stuff and then produce vegan stuff because they don't really care about anything but getting the money. So is it possible for a vegan a vegan food company to be ethical unless it's actually ran by people who share that philosophy?
Yeah, that's talked about a lot. And I've had lots of conversations about this. And there's so many shifts happening at the same time. There's people in these food companies like Tyson, for instance. Let me just throw that name out there. Or Gardein, because they also have, they're bought by, I think, Tyson. I think there's a lot of different food companies that people that are at the forefront of making business decisions. They're changing the way they eat, but the organization or the company itself is not ethical, but some of the players are going ethical, vegan. And so I think that we're still answering that question. I think that there's a big shift happening. My preference is people like Miyoko that has Miyokos. Hopefully she doesn't sell out to Kraft cheese. I would not want to see that happen. But if it does, am I going to not eat their food anymore? No, that ain't going to happen. I will support vegan companies first if I can, always 100%. But I will buy vegan products from companies that aren't a vegan company. Because there's so much going on at the same time right now. And I think we got to be careful, especially in a world that veganism is not enough to change our world. Being vegan is not enough. We got to change our government, you know. And so, I was even in Canada. I think I was in Toronto.
You were in Canada?
Twice.
Even
I was
Canada?
in Parliament. I was in Parliament. I was asked to speak at Parliament. Yes, with Nation Rising. And so, because what I know is, unless we change our food system, going vegan ain't going to fix it, because the food system will stay broke. And so they'll continue to subsidize and spend money, and it won't fix it. So I think we're in a very interesting state right now where we have to support vegan businesses first. I really do believe that, if we can. And then, but don't be that person that doesn't buy a vegan product from a non-vegan company.
Could I give you my take on this, just to add to this dialogue?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Like, I'm a straight up business person. Like, I travel the world doing business, and I will tell you that 7 years ago, I'm dying of hunger at an airport. I can't eat anything. I'm eating like a bag of nuts, and then I got to take a 6-hour flight somewhere where nothing on the flight is going to be vegan. And I'm not suffering and feeling some intense pride about it. I'm just suffering. It sucks. It's horrible. And now I'm at an airport, basically anywhere, going to go to a meeting. We're at the meeting. They don't have to be embarrassed. They're able to get me some really good food from like whatever local place. Like, I like what you said about like, don't be that vegan that's like don't be that person that's like a pain in the ass about everything. Do I want big multinational companies to have an oligarchy? No, of course I don't want that. But at the same time, I want someone in Lethbridge, Alberta to be able to go and get vegan food somewhere, learn about it, at least become curious about it. And the more educated they get, then they can start funneling their money towards vegan health companies. But like, unless you have that clear entry point, then how are they going to do it? Like, A&W is a big burger franchise out here, and they were the first like big burger franchise in Canada to adopt the Beyond Burger. And when they did it, they saw a humongous boost of profits. In this time, they were way a forerunner in it. And like, every vegan I know is like, I love A&W, but you know, when McDonald's comes out with some version of whatever, they're going to be like, man, McDonald's, screw them. And I kind of laugh at it because it's just kind of like, whoever kind of positioned themselves first. Good on A&W. Like, and they sell way more hamburgers than they do anything else, but good for them. Like, I want people to have the options so that they can get deeper and deeper and deeper into the culture, become more and more and more educated. They educate themselves. They come across good things. But just like wanting everything perfectly packaged in this like echo chamber of activism, I think is like a disastrous way to try and proceed with any kind of change, because then it also cuts out things like you're talking about. It's like, it's not just about being vegan. It's about government. It's about business. It's about finances, like where things come from. It even like, how do you speak about politics and ideas with people? Like, all of it is interconnected. I think the more you cut yourself off from the human experience, the less you are able to connect with humans. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely the truth. And, you know, I just know that I like the whole cell-based meat, you know. They were on one of our RAP summits. Aleph Farms, out of Israel was on one of our RAP summits. And, do vegans support cell-based meat or not? Well, I have been one of those vegans that I'm learning to understand why I would support cell-based meat. Do I want to eat it? No. Do I want my cat to eat it? Yeah. So, if I had a snake, would I want my snake to eat cell-based meat instead of a rat? Yeah. So, there's reasons to support cell-based meat technology. And, I'm not going to be that vegan that doesn't. I'm not going to be the vegan that's going to hold back progress. I'm not going to be the vegan that says, oh my God, impossible foods are beyond meat. They tested on these animals back in the day. And, so now it means you're not a vegan if you eat an impossible burger. Probably by the time I walk from here to my kitchen, I'm going to step on some bugs. I don't mean to, and I think that sometimes we are shooting ourselves in the foot. Vegans that, are shooting themselves in the foot, trying to be too perfect. And what we have to do is change this world and not condemn, criticize, judge people that are really trying to do their best.
Yeah, I agree. Everyone's path to veganism is different. And I love that new vegans have the opportunity to try something at a fast food joint. Like, what a time to be alive.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and people like the fast food experience. Like my husband, he is a fast food junkie. And, he likes going into Burger King. He liked, Kentucky Fried Chicken had those nuggets for a while, but they quit selling them. And, it's part of what we like to do. I ran into Jason's Deli coming home because I hadn't eaten anything to get to this podcast. And I said, do y'all have any vegan options? She said, we have a delightful zucchini sandwich with hummus and red onions. And I said, I'll take one. It sounded good to me. And so, we gotta be open to the fact that they said, yes, they do was huge to me.
Yeah. Totally.
Well, yeah, and going vegan is not a planned event. Can you elaborate on that for someone who might be vegan curious?
Yeah, it's not a planned event. I was not planning on going vegan. Took me 5 years to go down the rabbit hole, never to come back. Somebody that's vegan curious should keep going in the direction of being a vegan. Just keep going that way. Read everything you can read. Watch whatever you can, don't be afraid to watch those documentaries that scare you. See, when I was going vegan, I didn't know I was going vegan, but I was educating myself. And I watched documentaries like Earthlings, horrible footage, but I watched slaughterhouse videos. I watched that stuff until I didn't want to watch it anymore. I wanted to go vegan instead. I mean, be ethical. If you really want to transition to go vegan, then watch the videos of what we're doing to these animals. Watch them. Cry, grieve, scream, beat your head against the wall. Be mad at your family. Be mad at tradition. Be mad at what's happened. But don't avoid it. Dive in until you're vegan.
Oh, yeah. What kind of music do you like and play? Like, what kind of music are you into?
I love bluegrass. I love folk. I love, I really love original, like, authentic music. And, I also like Evanescence and, hardcore stuff like that.
All right. Okay. I'm about to throw some hardcore at you. I got to give you 3 names to consider here or to check out. I would encourage you to listen, to check out. You may not love them musically. I do. I talk about them a lot on the podcast. Earth Crisis. Have you ever heard of Earth Crisis?
No.
They're a vegan straight edge band from Syracuse, New York. There are very few bands that I could say changed the game musically for like underground music. They're one of them. And they really introduced veganism. they're like the band that made and continues to make people vegan. Like they're incredible band. They're still a band now. They've been around forever. A lot of great records. I encourage you to check out Gomorrah Seasons End, the LP, and then I'll send all this to you. And also Destroy the Machines. They've got their whole catalog is gold, but those two are great. They're really focused on veganism, and they're like, I mean, they are 100% why I'm vegan today. Like they got me into veganism when I was young. It didn't last, but then I came back to it, and they're a huge thing. But they're one of them. The second is Youth of Today. Youth of Today have a song called No More, which is one of the greatest songs about vegetarianism ever. And then there's a band called Gorilla Biscuits that has a song called Cats and Dogs that I think you'll connect to because of your story with Rowdy Girl. Those three bands played such a huge role in so many people's path to veganism and vegetarianism and all of those things. The reason I ask you is because you talk as if you grew up in the punk and the hardcore scene. And it's like literally talking to you is like, oh yeah, like you totally should be fronting a hardcore band. So it's funny that you say you like hardcore.
I do. You know the girl that has the purple hair? I can't think of her name right now, but it's escaping me. She has a band. She talks, she sings.
Oh, yeah. Alyssa
Whiteblood. She is a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to get on her stage.
Arch enemy. I love her. And she's a real big supporter of Rowdy Girl. And and Moby. You know, Moby's a big supporter of our work. Yeah. Alyssa's also Canadian, so shout out to
I know. That's where I met her.
My fellow Canadian.
I met her in Canada. I did not know who she was. I was standing next to her, and I started talking. One thing led to the other, and next thing you know, she sees me get on stage. I see her get on stage, and we're like, oh. So, then we became fast friends.
Yeah. She's also married. This is a little foible. I don't usually talk about this stuff. She's also, I think, married to Doyle from the Misfits. How do you feel about that, Patrick? Patrick is unimpressed, but I think that's pretty sick. Okay. Let's keep going because I have maybe a tough question, maybe an easy question for you. And it's a two-part question. What does success mean for a Rowdy Girl? If you think about the organization, what does success look like for you?
Well, success for us is when I can completely take my hands off of it. And it's got a fundraising machine. It's got a presence. It's got a force to be reckoned with without me at the wheel at all. And, where I am going around the country and the world with my husband, promoting our book, the documentary that'll be out in 2023. We've got a documentary that's focused 100% on the work I do. It's been in production for 2 years. And it's in final edit right now. Moby's the executive producer. So whenever I'm able to leave here, go out, and things are just humming. Y'all are taking care of Rowdy Girl without me at the wheel.
Heck yeah. Shout out to Moby as well. You got some like weird tattoos lately, man. But you know what? I think you got a pretty sick history in many ways.
He does.
Okay. Part two of my question for you is, what does failure look like for Rowdy Girl?
Well, I am the type of person that doesn't see failure at all. So I'm going to answer this honestly.
Mm-hmm.
If I believed in failure, I would not even be here because it's taken every one of those so-called failures in my life to get me to here. So I look at failure as part of the ingredients to success. If you don't fail, you'll never succeed, period. And so, to me, if failure to Rowdy Girl would be to accept failure.
Oh yeah. I know. I love that.
I love that too. So what do you mean when you say cattle ranchers love their animals and kill them too?
Well, I'll never forget the first time I said it. I got so much energy. I mean, good stuff. And also people go, oh my God, I can't believe you said that. But I made a meme. I made a meme that said that. And I got so much backlash from vegans, of course. Because it's true. I'm the kind of person that always loved animals, but I ate them. Cattle ranchers love animals and kill them because they love taking care of the cows. They love going out and, and tending to them and all. But when it's time to sell them, they have to sell them. They have to be a business person and do what they got to do to sell the animals and make a profit so that they can feed their family. That's the way they're conditioned to think. Doesn't mean it's true, but that's conditioning. So when I say cattle ranchers love animals and kill them, I mean it. It's just that simple. I'll never forget the first time I saw it with my own eyes. I was like, I can't do this anymore. But I was still doing it. Tommy would come in with the bill of sale, He would take a load of calves to the sale barn. And I would be crying about it. And he would come home. I wasn't a vegan. He would come home with a bill of sale and he'd say, you're doing all this crying and stuff. He said, but you don't mind spending the money. And he was right. I was in this place where it's like you're trapped in a magic spell. You're trapped in a magic spell of animal ag. The way it runs you.
So what does it mean to take on animal agriculture? Because you talk about it like it's this you said it's like, hey, ranchers are not the enemy, animal agriculture is. So what does it mean to take that on? How do you take that on? How do you take it on and how does it resist change?
Well, the way I take it on finally is head on. When I first went vegan for the animals and all, people were like, don't call out big ag. Don't call out, you'll be a target, and all this. Well, I do call them out and I am a target. And, I'm on their hit list. But, it's kind of like, I've seen the Rancher Advocacy Program, Rowdy Girl Sanctuary, on actual list, on flow charts of animal ag that we are ones to watch. How do I take them on? I just call it out today. Animal ag is the leading cause of climate change, deforestation, ocean dead zones. It's killing the rainforest. It is unbelievably horrible on our planet. If we wanted to go back in time to 10,000 years ago and just, let animals live on land, and every now and again, maybe you eat an animal because of bad conditions. It happens. Maybe. But we have turned animal agriculture is a killing machine. It literally is about killing fast, furious, as many as you can kill with no regard for life whatsoever.
Yeah. So with that though, so animal ag, like we say, it's like kind of this amorphous, seems like this big kind of dark thing. But what is it specifically? Do you get a chance to engage with people who would be considered part of that? Do they, no, I guess they don't ignore you, but when you say you're a target, what does that mean? So what is animal ag? And who are the players? Do you interact with them? What does it mean to be targeted by them? Any of those you want to hit on?
Yeah. Well, whenever I was in the animal rights conferences, big animal ag representatives were there. They don't tap on your shoulder and say, hi. They are very much in the background. Yeah, I don't know who they are, because they're a mega force. That's why it's so important for vegans to get behind a lobbying group that is all about changing, legislation that vegans can support. We have to do that because so much of the force of animal ag is political. You know, it's a political force. And, you know, I mean, even our president, you know, supports, you know, all these slaughterhouses. So when you consider that, you know, and the players behind what makes those wheels turn, we live in a very corrupt world where animal ag is not a couple of people you talk to. It is a conglomerate. It's a mega force. You know, it's big ag, big dairy, big pharma, big banks, you know, big, you know, media. All of them are married together. All of that is big ag.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking to dig and why I want to dig in on this is the thing that I think is ultra important to get across to people. And I'm not even talking about veganism necessarily or animal advocacy. I'm talking about like change, like real deal change. It's not about attacking the person on Twitter that's like some idiot who said some stupid thing. Like all of this stuff goes like deep. It's big. It's like massive. And it's not like one person somewhere in a room pressing a button, not one person making a change. The reason people can be detached from humanity is the system that it's built is inhuman. Like the system all these people are moving in is so huge. It's so interconnected, interwoven that one piece is doing something here, one piece is doing something there. Decisions are being made everywhere to sustain this insane system that we're a part of. And to not educate, to not get involved, to not be really, really focused on what it means to create long-lasting change is actually just playing exactly into what keeps that system in power. And having like, the reason I keep pushing on some of this stuff with you is like, you're literally actually doing something. And that goes more than just not eating. It's like you're taking a space. I want people to understand like really what it means to create change, because you are actually creating real change in the face of this. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, it does. And that's the reason why I take the time to really be very thoughtful in the way I answer you. The reason we got on their hit list or whatever it is because I speak out. I'm not scared to speak out. I just do. And I think anybody that's calling Big Ag out is going to be on their list. I wouldn't, you know, I might have talked to somebody. I know that Big Ag, they buy out vegans to create conflict with other vegans. Like Big Ag is all in the middle of our vegan community, creating havoc within us, to separate us, to cause conflict with us. They've got the money to pay off even vegans or people that may say they're vegans and are not really.
Yeah. Any other questions? No? Okay. I got a couple more as we're heading in, and then if you've got anything, pop in. So we're talking about like 4D chess with like big forces, but you're also like on the ground organizing, creating change, like cool relationships with people. Like you're just out there with people. What does your day-to-day look like with running Rowdy Girl?
My day-to-day, today we had some volunteers here. A guy named Daniel Austin. He's known as the Vegan Meathead. He's got a book out, you know, called The Vegan Meathead, and he's a power lifter and strong and vegan, and him and his girlfriend came out and volunteered today. This weekend we have a group from an organization called HEAT, H-E-A-T, and they're young kids, like 18 years old, that are all about, you know, changing the environment and animals and, you know, animal rights and all that. And so there's about 18 of them coming out here to volunteer. My day-to-day, you know, like Monday through Friday, I have marketing meetings. I have social media meetings. I'm always developing content for our channels on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and YouTube. And I'm looking for somebody that wants to volunteer to help, blow my TikTok out of the water. So if you know anybody that wants to help me with TikTok, please send them my way. But it's constant. Like I'm always in meetings with AFA, the co-founder Connie Spence, and the lobbyists that we have in the 501c4, doing what I can to affect change there. We just got funding for a fundraising consultant, so I'm so excited that I actually have the money to bring in a bona fide fundraising consultant to really amp up our fundraising engine. And so, cause that makes it one step closer to me being able to one day take my hands off. A lot of fundraising, a lot of, writing my book. I was in Arkansas a couple of weeks ago for a week, filming the last segment of the documentary. Making good food, being with my animals, walking out and spending lots of time with the animals. Whenever I need a break, I just go from here and I walk down to the farmhouse and, I go and let the goats out, let them follow me around, and I'll go sit outside with the chickens and video and go walk out and talk to the cows and the horses and the pigs. I just take breaks, and, we have animal care staff today. So it isn't me and my husband taking care of all the animals like we did in the beginning. Thank God I could not do all this stuff if I did. But, we have volunteers, we have staff. I have administrative assistants, so I'm directing her. Yeah, and telling my husband what to do a lot.
Respect. All right, I got 3 more questions as we wrap up. You got anything, Monica?
I don't have any more questions. I'm just in awe of you.
Oh, Monica, thank you.
Well, and actually, I even knew about you because of Monica. Monica brought it up and was like, we need to interview this person. And then, of course, I just fell in love with the story. And it's just cool. Like, this is cool. And it's been great. All right. And then if you have any questions, anything you want to ask us, anything you want to add in, please feel free. So anything on your end before I ask you 3 questions?
Well, I want to make sure that I can, that I can interact with y'all on social media. So, Monica, if you would just, I don't know if you follow me on Instagram or wherever, but make sure I know who you are. Both of you.
I'll message you.
Okay? Yeah, I appreciate that.
All right. These 3 questions are going to be the hardest questions I have asked you. We have asked you so far, and they're only going to get harder as we go along. Are you ready? Okay. When you think about what you do and your day to day, what is the perfect soundtrack for what artist would be the perfect soundtrack for the work that you do day to day?
What artist?
I'm sorry. I know this is a tough one.
What artist? Like what? Singing artist?
Yeah. Music, could be a band, could be a solo artist, whatever you want.
Well, I think if I had to choose the artist that would be perfect, it would be Moby. And the reason I say that is because I know how much he loves our organization. I know how much he follows what we do. And so if I was going to choose somebody to be an artist for the work we do, I would want to make sure they know us.
Respect. Good work. I like that. Okay, you ready for question 2?
Yeah.
Again, very, very hard.
Okay.
So when we're thinking about people who want to see change, and they can change, like anyone can be vegan, but there's a difference between just, hey, I'm going to be vegan versus like actually driving change. And so it doesn't just have to be about veganism, any kind of change that people want to make. Do you have any words of inspiration, anything that you could help form up people's thinking about? How do you move from just being kind of like a solo artist where it's like, yeah, I'm just going to do my own thing versus actually, you know what? I'm going to be the person leading this. I'm going to be the person who's going to take the leap. I'm going to be the person who puts their hand up. Is there anything that you could suggest to people about like, how do you find that within yourself to put your hand up and to lead the charge?
Great question. Everybody that's vegan, you must become an activist. In today's world, I thank you for being vegan. I appreciate that. But if you really want to affect change for the animals, for our world, you've got to be an activist in some way. And the way that you do that is by knowing who you are. Everybody's got a mouth. Hope, not everybody. I mean, I know some people are deaf and they can't speak. But if you can speak, then get on your phone, do reels on Instagram. Whatever you can do today in today's technology, you can be an activist and inspire the people in your own sphere of influence. Do whatever. I mean, there's people do chalk activism, get involved in some sort of activism that speaks to you, and don't give up. Don't stop. Always be an activist. I mean, you have to. If you don't, you're just... in our world today, we are on the tipping point, and probably already are past it, of losing it. Of losing it. Losing our planet. We've got to be selfless here. If we don't do anything, we're just being selfish. We got to start finding our voice. And if you need help finding your voice, just private message me. I will inspire you to find your voice. I promise.
Hell yeah. I love that. All right. Last question. I lied. This one's actually going to be pretty easy, but it's kind of big. So it might, and take up as long as you want on this one. What can you tell us about the upcoming book and the upcoming documentary? And also, when can we expect them?
Well, the book, which right now the working title is The Secret Diary of a Cattle Rancher's Wife. And it's a memoir, and all about my transition from a cattle rancher to a vegan and the work I do as an activist. And so it's all about my relationship with the cows and the animals. And, I'm sure my autism will really come out in that, because I really do talk to animals and they talk to me and I hear them. And so it really comes out. And, when's it going to be out? Well, my hope is that I have it finished this year, and so the manuscript will be finished and ready for publication next year. The documentary is in final edit, and it is supposed to start hitting film festivals first quarter.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. All right, so as we're closing off, where can people look up Rowdy Girl, look you up, be in touch? Where should people look for your stuff?
RowdyGirlSanctuary.org is our Rowdy Girl website, and RancherAdvocacy.org is our Rancher Advocacy program. And please come to the summit. This is a summit you do not want to miss. And if you have the funds and are so inclined to become a sponsor, we have a great lineup of sponsors, and we need the sponsors, because the more sponsors we have, the more money we can spend on production of the summit.
Heck yeah. Awesome. All right, Monica, any closing thoughts from you?
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Renee. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you both.
And Renee, anything you want to say as we're closing off?
I just want to let you both know how much I appreciate the interview. I know it took a while to get here, but it's been a real pleasure. And every time I'm interviewed by people like you that really have a lot of passion for what you do, it opens me up a little bit more to be a better activist, to be a better leader. So thank you for inspiring me to go another step.
Heck yeah. All right, everyone, I will break down this episode a little bit more. I'm going to tell you about how I got into being actually a vegan rather than just a vegetarian, and it has to do with a dog that I had. So maybe a little bit of a similar story to you that I'll share in the outro. But as we're closing off, Renee, this was a super cool conversation. A lot of people come to the podcast from different places. We've got people from the corporate world. We've got people who are into punk and hardcore. We've got people who are actors, activists, athletes. People come from all sorts of different places. But they all come to hear about one thing. Yes, I have 2 dogs here right now. This is Blue over here, who is our wiener dog. And he's a very nice guy. And then we have Jesse, who's over here, who would never be a vegan because he loves the sweet meat of biting Patrick's ankles. He hates Patrick so much. He loves to bite him. People come from all sorts of backgrounds, but they all come here to hear about leadership. And like, one of the things I think is the most important for me about leadership is just because someone has a title like, I don't know, CEO or director or whatever it is, doesn't mean they're a leader. There's a difference between being a leader and like pushing things. And leadership doesn't have to be some like totally insane change, but leaders are accountable to creating the right kinds of environments so the right kinds of things happen. And sometimes people lead really big things like you're doing, like big important changes, and other times you're just leading a project happening. But leadership has everything to do about creating the right environments, the right things happening. And I'm so inspired by your story and all the incredible work you're doing. So thank you so much for being an incredible example of what's possible when people are willing to really lead.
Thank you. You know, I appreciate that. I realize I'm a leader, you know, but I didn't like sign up for the job. It just is, it happened and I'm up for it. So, I'll do whatever I have to.
Awesome. All right, everyone, we'll see you in the outro. And Spencer, drop the beat. One step.